Whoa! It's Wulzy. Welcome back to the Geometry Dash review episode. Today we're going to be checking out Tidal Wave by OniLink. Got footage by OniLink right here, verified by Zoink last night. Says it's a double themed top one. We're just going to check out the footage, we're going to look at this level, just see what we can find, and just see what my opinion is, because I've seen a lot of discourse. I already recognize this song from Rocket League, I believe. Rocket League soundtrack. Shireways. It is! We have a banger in Rocket League and on Geometry Dash. Okay. So it's rare that a level starts off this fast when the song is so quiet, right? It's so dark too. Pretty interesting way to start the level. It's kind of already going against the grain. I see that already with a lot of moving objects that look pretty smooth. Nice waterfall and light shafts in the ceiling. That's pretty nice. Let's just take a look here. So we have a waterfall that transitions, which is pretty nice. I mean, the designs are the same kind of style on both sides, so it's not a huge switch in the level, but it's a nice way just to segue into the brighter section. The design is really dense and has a light outline, which leaves kind of plain space around the outside of it, which makes it look kind of flat in my opinion. Straight away, that's my opinion, but it looks really good. Like, I love the stuff that's inside. It's very textured. I like the way that it's kind of hidden behind the ground spikes a little bit, kind of secluded in that way, but it also looks kind of basic when you just pair it with like the plain background around the edge, right? Also some weird texturing with the spikes and stuff. It's interesting so far, I'll say. The direction most design creators tend to take now is a dark base and then some light details near the top so you can see the edges of the blocks. But this is kind of designing the entire block with light, which is interesting. I kind of like it. Swirl texture is kind of strange behind the blocks, but looks cool too. So I already know that this level is kind of just doing its own thing, kind of breaking a lot of design traditions, I'd say. That is an interesting transition. It just goes into blackness. Not sure how I feel. There's a saw blade there too, and then it splits into Tidal Wave. It's like a double-themed Extreme Demon, so that's really neat. I like the extremely hot fire on the ground. The blocks are kind of copy-pasted from one another. I can see that already, but it looks pretty cool. I like how the spikes are kind of stacked up with that edge. That pulse is really nice, I will say, but maybe there could be some extra black detail on the top and bottom here just to make up for it being like a regular spike there. I don't know. It looks cool. It's kind of static even though there's a lot of movement. I'm not really sure why, but the overlay definitely helps there with the glow beams that go over the top. And I think those waterfalls are kind of inferior to the ones that were in the level earlier. I don't know. They kind of just look plain, probably because they're not using any blending colors. They're just kind of sitting there with like a strange looking blue, but I really like it once it starts pulsing and moving. I think the flow is pretty nice for a wave section. You don't typically see a wave part this long in an Extreme Demon, especially when it's top one. And this is extremely dark. Okay, so let me just round up my thoughts on like the beginning of the level. I think the design is really interesting. I think it could do a little bit more with like blending it into the whole atmosphere a bit more in the beginning, especially because it is very dark, and I don't know if this really fits the song being so quiet. And I think this transition could definitely be improved with some sort of wave that swoops over the whole thing or something like that. I'm not sure. It kind of just looks a little bit odd to me. And the way that it fades in is kind of strange too. So it's black, right? You have the perfect opportunity to segue this in with like something creative, but the spikes kind of just fade in. You can see their start point, and everything just looks kind of strange when it's fading in because all of the details overlap. I don't know. It's a weird way to introduce this part of the level. It doesn't look bad by any means. I actually really like the design, but there's a lot of things that just show me that the level needs a little bit more polish and that it isn't fully fleshed out with its idea just yet. I'm hoping that once it goes into its second half that the designs and stuff are a little bit more thoughtful and varied, like maybe the color scheme can be brought in a little bit more effectively. This part is extremely dark, like I'm struggling to see anything that's really here. I think with a slow vibey part like this, a lot more movements could occur, but I'm not sure how you could do that with the blocks. Maybe just the foreground, you could do some sort of parallax with the ground spikes or have something in front that makes this feel a little bit more dynamic. Like, that structure's cool. I just pointed at the screen, you can't see that. But the way that the structure kind of moves in, it looks cool. I just think it could do it a lot more. And again, we have a fading transition that just looks odd. It goes from such a dark part to then all of a sudden just being extremely bright. But this color scheme is a lot more creative for sure. I really like the structuring here. This is really clean. I like the mix of blue and yellow with the white in between and the black outline. I think this outline suits it a lot more compared to what we had in the beginning because it's a light outline to a dark background compared to a light outline to a bright background. I think it works a lot better. I think the clouds could move separately on like different layers. I think the particles in the water could also move slightly. Just a bit. Doesn't even need to be that much because we have moving blocks and stuff, but the background is completely static and doesn't have any sort of movement that way. But I like the rocks there. This duel looks beautiful, I have to say. I really like the way that it flows. I like the glow beam on top. No matter how much that detail gets used, I will always really like it. And I don't know if it really builds the tension as well as it could. Like, this part just does its own thing because of the dual gameplay. The flow is completely different. It's switching the level up and its build up. But this is just another wave part that we've seen in the level before. The structuring isn't 100% for me. And this segue is really strange. I think the level could probably do some creative color work here just by removing all of the blue maybe and then removing all the yellow, because I don't know, it just feels a little bit strange having this song completely cut out and the level not really changing in aesthetic at all. Plus this bridge just looks kind of weird with these swirling objects. I think the colors are cool. It looks like a blend of the water and the beach, but it also just cuts off here. I don't know. And again, we just see the part before it really gets into it, which is kind of off-putting to me. The particles on top are cool. I like the movements. The water is kind of strange. I like the fact that you've just used GD objects here, but is it messy? I think it is, because it's like overlapping the portals and stuff. It's going outside of the lines. I'm not sure. I think you could use different objects to texture it a little bit better than using the same thing over and over again. But I think these spike decorations are actually growing on me, these pillar things. I think they could be worked in a little bit more cleanly instead of just being sat here the whole time. But I think it actually looks pretty nice overall, just in one big swoop. There's some great stills in this level, like the sideways slopes that don't necessarily fit the wave, but look really nice going through. I'm gonna go back to the beginning of this beach part. I think it's actually pretty nice. I think the saw blades at times stick out a little bit too much considering how plain they are. Here, it's a lot better because we have a lot more layers to it. It's different colors, right? This part kind of has the same thing. In the beginning, we had some plain saws. So I feel like it goes back and forth between me liking the saws and not liking the saws. They kind of just stick out as something that the creators added in just to fill the space, in my opinion. Alongside these chains, I don't really understand the point of these. They kind of just sit there for no reason. I don't know. I don't really see it. The swirls are nice because they actually move, but the chains are just on low opacity and they seem to just fill the space. There's no arrows or anything. The level's relying on like random details like the spikes in the background, the middle ground here, instead of like actual things that are going to help pull the level together, right? I mean, by no means is this a bad level. I'm just pointing out why it might look a little bit flat or, you know, anticlimactic compared to other levels you might see on the list, because it kind of ditches the traditional level structure and goes for its own abstract mix of slightly core but mostly art background. Some interesting designs here, you see. They are just patterns placed in blocks, which kind of makes it look a bit like a mosaic or some sort, like very artsy. And I think it mostly conveys itself well, but I think the lack of detail in between might detract from that, especially in the transitions where the whole level kind of just decomposes. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of that. It feels like it's unintentionally just empty there. I don't know. It doesn't have the same energy as anything else. I mean, if you want to bring this wave part in and make me actually care about it a bit more, and like have the ooh, you know, like the movements are cool, but I don't know, it's hard to follow when it just sort of spams waterfalls and then just appears out of nowhere. I think you could draw me in a lot more to make me a bit more convinced with the level. It's not that I don't care about it, that was really poorly phrased, but just like the way it presents itself isn't very polished in my opinion. The designs are great, love looking at it on standstills like this, but overall as a level, it doesn't go the extra mile to really sell me on what it's trying to do. I think that the progression is cool from the beginning with the slower reverb part of the song, and then the more climactic sunny parts of the song. This part looks sick, by the way, I really enjoyed that. But it doesn't, like, in between, there's just like awkward bridge parts that seem to just flesh out the level, and it doesn't seem as creative as some of the parts like this feel, right? These are just my first thoughts, and I have no hate towards the creator or anything. I think the level is actually a pretty cool idea and probably deserves a spot on the demon list. I'm just trying to explain why it feels slightly off to me at certain times. I do like the textures that it builds with the swirls sometimes, and also the spikes that stick out of the ground. I think that is really nice for a composition where the bottom is mostly full and then the top is open with the clouds. I really like that. I think it's thoughtful detail. I think it helps bring the blue and yellow together a bit, but also some extra objects could be thrown in the mix. As I said with the water part earlier on, I'm lost. I'm completely lost. Right here, I think just different objects would help sell it, because it does get kind of repetitive just staring at the same object in the ground over and over again. I think there could be some extra little detail of certain colors, but I do think the ending is pretty nice in this level from what I saw of it for a split second before I went back and just evaluated this part again. I really like the sunset to end. I think that's a perfect perfect color scheme just to move the level forward. I like the way that the level is still blue ever so slightly. It's like it phases out the blue eventually and just gets totally consumed by the orange and yellow detail. I like how it switches to thanks for watching. But overall, I think certain parts of this level are weird, like the design choices with these lines. I don't know, these look really sloppy to me. But the designs are very pristine. They're very nice for the most part. There's just little details in between parts that don't necessarily sell me on the whole vibe and the atmosphere the creator's trying to do here. To answer the question in the title of the level being good or not, I think it's alright. I mean, I like it personally, but I think as a level it kind of takes a lot of risks and not a lot of them pay off. The design is pattern-based, and that makes it difficult to vary because the structures seem very samey amongst each other. Like, let me get an example. Like that corridor, copy-pasted blocks, right? With specific details that stand out more rather than this whole swirly, messy texture. I mean, look at this screenshot. It just looks kind of like a mess. The portals are overlapping at times. I noticed that in the beginning too, that some of the portals just kind of just sit on top of each other and cut into blocks at times, like right there. I think this level could benefit, especially with the theme it's trying to go for, with having more recognizable details. I don't know. But the color scheme is something that redeems it massively, in my opinion, because it's hard to pull off this whole happy, sunny vibe that's capitalized later on in the level, like over here. And I think this level actually kind of does it. Just some of the structuring puts me off because I'm not a huge fan of spamming spikes and saw blades, like right here. I don't like how there's so much like space underneath that's just awkwardly open. Like, I don't know. This is compositionally a mess, I'd say. We have tiny blocks just scattered around. We have random stuff sticking out of objects. I don't know. I really like half the details and I dislike the other half, in my opinion. It's not a level that I hate just because it's hard. I just think in general this level could probably have a little more work put into the polish, especially for parts like this. Like, this is just a disappointment. You have layers everywhere. You have like such cool blending effects and stuff. Why could we not have seen anything like that in this bridge? It just sits there. I don't know, it just looks so awkward to me. But it's a cool level. Like, I like the vibe of it. It just needs a little bit more work for it to really sell itself to me. I do appreciate the variation between part to part. I just think once you actually get into a part, you start to realize a lot of the blocks just look the same as each other, like copy-pasted, flipped. And I'm kind of always craving the next part to show up, right? Because it gets a little bit repetitive after a while, having so many wave parts in a row with so many similar designs. But the blue, yellow, yellow, blue, like the mix-up of the structure color, it really helps here. I just think earlier on with everything being mishmashed, it just, I don't know, it doesn't work 100%. But the ending is beautiful. Like, I can't really fault this at all. This is probably the best part in the level. Still though, structuring is kind of all over. We just have random blocks overlapping each other. We have slopes that just like stand above the ground spikes. It doesn't feel like there's been much thought put into like the shape of the level. It's just kind of a bunch of objects that serve the purpose of gameplay and then weren't 100% able to have been built into the whole level, right? But it's neat. I just would have liked to have seen a little bit more attention to detail rather than a lot of patterns. It's neat but messy. I don't know. That's my take on this level. This level is by OniLink. I've seen a lot of mixed reception. I just still don't know how I feel. I think it's just cool. I wouldn't say the level's really outright bad. I just think there's certain aspects of it that don't really connect with what I typically like to see in Geometry Dash design/art levels. Thank you so much for watching this Geometry Dash video. Check the links in the description. Leave a like and subscribe, and have a good day.